This is the penultimate episode of my Best of Nextfest 2023 series. We only have 2 more episodes left and then the ordeal is over. So let's begin with today's crop of solid indie games. We are starting things off with Empire Shall Fall. This is a turn-based strategy game that chances are, if you've played video games in the past 30 years or so, this should look very familiar to you. You see, Empire Shall Fall is the indie equivalent of Advance Wars, much like how Wargroove was the indie version of Fire Emblem. And from what we played of this one, it is hitting all the same beats and notes of the legendary series. You will command units in turn-based form, watch them shoot each other off different panels of combat, and of course wage war across multiple nations and multiple maps. Where this game does go into a few slightly different directions, there is an upgrade system where before each map you can choose from different perks that you can attach to units. These perks will modify them in some way, such as increasing counterattack damage, maybe an enemy will lose ammo if they attack, and so on, and you are limited, so you can't just give every upgrade to every unit. Fog of War makes a return, and you will be fighting some, let's just say, not so humanoid enemies all the time here, and I don't want to spoil things much further. If there's any real issue that I saw from this demo is that it's not really, I would say, iterating that much on the Advance Wars formula. If you're a veteran of all the classic games, then there really isn't anything too new in this one. I'm hoping that we see a little bit more in terms of like CO diversity, either in like music, special powers, or both, but this is shaping up to be a solid indie love letter to the franchise. Speaking of indies and strategy, our next game is Iron Marines Invasion. This is another series from developers of the Kingdom Rush franchise, and this one seems to add a little bit of everything that we've seen from the RTS genre. You'll be commanding units across multiple planets in the galaxy to try and save it from evil. Where this game kind of goes in a different direction is it has a very heavy emphasis on kind of the meta progression or persistent unlocks that we normally haven't really seen out of real-time strategy games today. First, you have your hero unit. You can choose from different hero units. They can each be upgraded, which will also unlock and enhance different abilities. Your individual units in this game belong to kind of different species, and each unit can basically take in the form of one of 3 different kinds that affects its general utility. So your standard marine unit, which is kind of like your shock trooper, they can also transform into like a heavy sniper anti-armor unit, and each alien has kind of like its own different take as well. There are passives you can unlock or passive researches and so on, and different difficulty levels, bonus objectives, and all that good RTS stuff. All in all, this one definitely shows some promise. It can be a little bit simple to control if you're hoping for, again, like very advanced micro play out of your RTSs, like a StarCraft and that kind of thing. This one is not going to be going that far, and this feels like a really good, I would say maybe casual to core game for strategy fans. Unfortunately, we did have an annoying soft lock that stopped us from playing more of the demo, but if you are an RTS fan looking for one that can be played both at the easy and somewhat challenging level, and does things a little bit differently, I would recommend checking this one out. We now turn to Gaiatrek. This is a kind of strategy real-time board game. It's in a similar vein of something like Cultist Simulator, where instead of trying to run a cult, we are trying to rebuild a planet. And that means harvesting resources, creating units, and trying to keep our base protected from evil. The entire game is played tabletop style, with cards representing units, resources, buildings, and so on. In order to make progress, you must build various structures. These will allow you to refine or harvest resources that then be used in other features. As the game goes on, you'll unlock more units, more things will try and invade and take you on, and you will need to make sure that your base and units are ready to meet them. The main issue that I have with Gaiatrek is that the onboarding and general GUI are not as refined as I would like to see. One of the issues is that it would be nice that whenever I click on a building or on a recipe to build, that if I have those resources, it will just automatically select them. Some of the buildings I clicked on did do that and some of them did not, and it would be really handy if it was all kind of done universal. The demo definitely kind of lacks in terms of, I guess, giving the player a good idea of what the actual game is going to be like, or what their actual strategy should be. I just basically followed the kind of like tutorial prompts, but I'm not quite sure what our main game is going to be. And this game is also played in real time, so everything has real timers to it. You can fast forward, but it can still be on the slower side. With that said, the concept definitely has some merit to it, and it's another one of those games where I'm curious to see where the finished game is going to go. So if you do like your kind of survival games, but focusing more on cards rather than kind of crafting, then this could be one worth checking out. We now have Acolyte of the Altar. This is a deck building roguelike where we are trying to, I guess, fight a variety of beasts and monsters in this Lovecraftian world. The twist of this one is that while this may look like a kind of like competitive deck builder, your Hearthstone, stuff like that, this game has you fighting against a variety of bosses. Each boss plays by their own rules. They have their own specific attacks, their own specific ways of fighting you. And you're going to have to figure out how to use your own cards in order to get around that. As the enemies fight, they'll kind of build like a rage or meter, which will let them cast their more powerful and more dangerous skills. You can kind of worship different Lovecraftian gods, which will give you special perks, special cards, that kind of thing. And I really like the aesthetic and the art style of the cards and the enemies you're going to be fighting. And the game itself kind of reminds me in a strange way of something like Library of Ruina, where you're fighting very unique and original encounters where everyone basically has their own different rule set. So you can't play this in the same way as a Hearthstone, or even something like a Slay the Spire, Monster Train, that kind of deal. With that said, like another demo that we've played in this episode, this one also had some issues. We ran into several major soft locks that did stop us from seeing more of it. I like the concept here, and like our other game, I think there is something here worth exploring. If they can iron out those bugs, or I guess sacrifice them to whatever Lovecraftian god of the studio, then this could be a really solid game for someone looking for another take on deck building design. For our last game of today's episode, this is Distant Bloom, a kind of a management / gardening / puzzle game. When an alien ship crash lands on a mysterious planet, it is up to us to use the powers of friendship, gardening, and recycling in order to rebuild this planet, figure out what is going on, and save our crew. The gameplay itself is focused on you exploring the alien world. As you pick up trash and clean up, the world will start to greenify. You'll eventually get to kind of the main puzzle element of the game, where you'll have to kind of plant different plants in a set of 3, which when you do that, it will kind of let them grow and flourish, and brings green back to the general area. And you need to make sure that basically there's a unique plant next to each one in order for things to work. As you explore, you'll get more resources, find more characters, and start to unravel whatever mystery is going on. This game is definitely aiming for kind of the casual, cozy audience. This is not going to be the Dark Souls of surviving or gardening style game, but I really enjoyed this one. The UI UX is very well done. It's very easy to pick up and play. And if there's anything that I would say is off about it, I just really wanted to see more of what this game had in store, and whether or not the gardening or the general puzzle solving would grow beyond what we saw in the demo. This is one of those games that, again, this is not going to be the 80 to 100 hour long, nightmarish affair of difficulty and challenge, but a really solid, cozy game to play. Something that you can just kind of zone out to, watch plants and stuff grow, and just marvel at all the green you're bringing back to the world. And if you are looking for a great relaxing game to play with a few puzzles and, of course, green thumb gardening here and there, then Distant Bloom is certainly worth checking out. And with that said, one more episode, and this nightmarish challenge of covering indie games is over. So be sure to tune in tomorrow for the finale. Let me tell your game for a future stream, and I hope it's not going to be for another Nextfest so soon. Please reach out. Do all the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. If you're interested in my thoughts on design, check out all my books wherever books are sold. Be sure to visit the Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on Game Wisdom, where you some of the art and science of games.